All right, thanks for joining us. For the few people in here, we're waiting on Clown, and people on Facebook, be patient, please. We'll hopefully get to you soon.
And well, we can start talking to Murphy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Murphy, what's the weirdest thing you've made at Cedar Ridge recently?
Ooh, the weirdest thing. I wouldn't say there's a weirdest thing we've made. I kind of had something weird happen. So I'm big into American single malt right now. It's kind of my passion, which is weird because we're a bourbon distillery, right? We're in Iowa, corn country, and anyway, I've really fallen into the single malt thing, especially because my background working at Stranahan's for a few years. And anyway, I had put a real cool barrel away of single malt, and I've been monitoring it as it's gone on. As it's gone on, I've tasted every couple months, and it got to the point where it was kind of a fan favorite, at least amongst our staff, and we all fell in love with it. And then about 2 months went by without trying it, and we just went back last weekend and tried it, and it had changed more than I've ever witnessed a whiskey changing. I don't know if it has to do with the change in seasons, going from winter into spring, because we don't do any climate control in our aging process. So I imagine that probably played a role, but it went from pretty sherry forward to just a heavy tobacco. I've never seen a single malt change more than that has in my life. So it went from a kind of our team favorite to one that we're just really shocked and intrigued by, and we're excited to monitor it as it goes on. So yeah, that really changed. As for other weird stuff, we're experimenting a little bit with some peated bourbon, putting that away. That's always fun to make.
That's cool.
And being a craft distillery, that's always a tough thing. That's something that you kind of debate with your team about, because you need to hammer what you do. You need to consistently produce the products that you're marketing, that you're distributing. You can't lose focus too much, but at the same time, we're craft distillers, and we want to mess around and experiment a little bit. So you have to find that middle ground. And so about once a year, twice a year, we'll experiment and do something like a peated bourbon. How's it going there, Cloud?
Cool. What's going on?
Clown is muted.
Welcome. So there we go.
Hey.
Hey, thanks for joining us.
What's happening, everybody?
All right. So welcome back to another virtual Tasting with Binnies, everybody. We're live on Facebook. We're here in our Zoom. We are joined by Murphy Quint, the head distiller at Cedar Ridge, and Clown from Slipknot. I'm Pat, along with Brett from the Whiskey Hotline, of course. Clown, thank you for joining us, man. We appreciate this. These are pretty awesome whiskeys, and we want to talk about those tonight for sure. Maybe first, you want to explain how a guy from a metal band got into the whiskey business. Was this, were you just a big whiskey fan and it was something you wanted to do just on your own, or what was the inspiration behind this?
Well, I've told a lot of people I'm very big into recipes, pressure, time, human feeling, emotion. And after drinking whiskey most of my legal life, we'll say, it got time to really, I got at an age where things changed, where why is this good? Why is whiskey whiskey? And I got interested in the process. And the deeper you go, the more you realize you don't even understand and how far you could actually go. You could start with the water, you could end with the barrel, all these things that you could do. So like music, I'm fascinated with like arrangement in songs. It's like one of the things I love more than anything is, is it a bridge or is it a breakdown? Do you reintroduce the intro on the outro? So whiskey, so many things on changing the arrangement, and so many things to learn by taking the risk of changing the arrangement. So very fortunate to and blessed to be introduced to Cedar Ridge and the family of Cedar Ridge, because they allow me to expand my brain, starting with knowledge, but then, in music, it can be hard to get people to open up their minds for change and different things. And I'm always trying to evolve, live my life, trying everything, incorporating everything, because then when my life is over, I will then have had everything. So whiskey mainly, and it even goes deeper a little bit, and then I'm done with it. But it's like it starts with shine. You know, I have a really romantic vision of shine in my brain, and you know, even I had to learn that, you know, the whiskey starts with the shine, and you know, there's just so many things. And you know, I'm just looking over here at this machinery, this pieces of art here down on the lower camera here. Like it's everything I'm saying is almost not important when you see these beautiful and I don't know exactly what they are, but we're going to get into it. But those two things that I'm looking at are reasons for my love of wanting to get into this, because you know, maybe most people think it's like boiling fries, but look at those things. Like everybody does it a little different. Everybody's got a little flair of their own. Everybody's got something to teach to the next person, and knowledge is power. And I love to be taught at this age of my life. I'd rather listen than speak. So I'll be quiet now. And what else?
Well, hell yeah. I'm of the opinion
Well,
that if you can't say you learn something new every day, then you've wasted your day. You know, if you don't learn something new every day of your life, like, what are you doing with yourself? So, I mean, I'm all for that. And what's sitting behind Brad, actually, those are the pot stills at the Glenfarclas distillery over in Scotland. They're friends of ours, and we've had the great fortune of visiting the distillery, and they make some unbelievable single malt whiskey, as Murphy, I think, would agree with too.
I'm a big
So,
fan.
yeah.
And
How do
everything
you
that
end
you
up with
just said,
Cedar Ridge? Go ahead, Brad.
I say, well, everything you just said kind of fits into what we were talking to Murphy about right before you popped on, because we asked him what was the oddest thing that you've made recently, and he started telling a story about like two pieces, one something they actually made, and then one other thing that just kind of happened, which I think feeds right into what you're talking about, because it's like, okay, now it's not that this happened, but why did it happen? How did it happen? What in the world, you know, what in the world went down that caused that, in this case, a malt, to change so much?
I mean, those sorts of ideas, right there alone, it's like, okay, something happened and we have to figure it out, and that's a lovely problem to have. In rock and roll, we'll call those happy accidents, and they always make their way into a record. Always, they do not get thrown away. They are monetized, you know, in spirit and everything else. But I couldn't agree more. It's the more I get into it every day, and the more I drink. Like right now, I'm stuck. I'm really stuck on our reserve that we're making together, and I'm just
It's so good.
yeah, day by
Yeah.
day. I'm so fortunate to you know, in my life, everything happens for a reason. So as much as I want to, I'm very lucky to have, you know, entered at the right time to have been able to get that. But what's most fascinating is I actually just really love it. And the more I drink of it, the more I learn instantly. And the more I can just wrap my brain on what I believe is the beginning. And there is really no beginning. I mean, you can start with the water, but that's a whole other thing, you know. And it's like, so yeah, I'm with you guys. And you know, just looking at those, I'm just like, oh God, I gotta have some. You know, it's like, look how beautiful those are. Are they the same wood and stained different? Or are they different?
Those are two pieces of copper, I believe. I can't really read the top.
Yeah.
So that's copper. That's made by a manufacturing company called Forsyth, that's in Speyside in northern Scotland. Most well-known, most famous still makers probably for the whiskey business, especially in Scotland. Those hold, I mean, these have got to be 5,000 liters. So what is that? 12,000 gallons would be the charge that they would put liquid in, run it through the bigger one on my left, which is with the blue equipment. And then it goes into a tank and gets held, it gets condensed, and then it goes into the one on the right. And that's where the final whiskey comes from. And this company Forsyth makes stills for 120 different producers in Scotland, plus numerous ones in the United States. Every single still is different. for everybody.
Yeah.
So they tweak the design, they play with all that stuff
The shape.
for
all
exactly
that.
what you're saying. Because the just altering the shape, like this bit here, which I can't do it on the green screen, but like that little fat part in the middle, like right there, like if you flatten that out, that would totally change the character of the whiskey. Completely change the character of the whiskey. Because of the way that the alcohol vapors at. And Murphy can explain it probably even better. He's a distiller.
No, I was actually just going to chime in and say that, like, basically everything you guys just talked about, that's my favorite part about all this. What's so romantic about it all is, the two stills you're talking about, every distillery has their own process. There's this major element of control, right? You do X, Y, and Z to make your whiskey different. But then, as Clown mentioned, there's also always happy accidents. There's also always variants. And, humans have been making whiskey forever, but somehow, we haven't harnessed that variance and those happy accidents yet. We embrace them and allow them to happen. And that's what's so cool about this, is that fine balance between as much control as possible and embracing the happy accidents. And that's where it all meets.
Well, in life is so circumstantial and it's random. It's random circumstances, and you will always get your life handed to you by nature. And that, this is all created by nature, just time, gravity, pressure, water, all this beautiful, caramels, wood, and all this stuff. So I think that's what I'm going to get really excited about here pretty soon, when I have time off and I can really play, and create and paint. We're going to do some really off the wall stuff. I've been thinking since Murph and I, we're going to bury Juice. But I've been thinking, now I want to hang it high in the air, because we got in this really big conversation about humidity, and I'm thinking, well, oh no, like I thought I was going to get into like barrels, and now I'm like, okay, humidity is the new thing. So I'm thinking, where is the breaking point in humidity? Like, where's the optimal, like, worst sweating humidity between 0 and 100 foot, and let's just get a crane and hang a barrel. And Murph's talking about, like, well, when we bury it, maybe the worms will eat it. And I thought, oh, that's even more fascinating, because we'll just get those worms and we'll sell them for fishing. And like, it just, it's just one of those things that when you're young, where I'm from, I'm 51 years old. So there was no phones, there was no Uber, there was no getting around, there was no learning how to make stuff. You just had to do things. And, when you finally got into mom and dad's whiskey and you tried whiskey and you knew you liked it, because some people just don't like it, but I knew I liked it from a very young age. And it just kind of fit well in my molecular makeup of water. And it's fascinating to get older and actually be able to make a difference in it somehow, somehow make a difference. And I was doing an interview earlier, and the other thing, and I always like to mention this, and we don't have to talk about a long time, but I also love being able to have the responsibility to, remind people to be responsible. And I feel that's important too, just that we have a wonderful opportunity to make great recipes, but also educate people on, how to not be, hopefully, and that's another part of this whole education. Is just, it's really big, when you tag on the ATF, it's serious, and I always like to be serious. So it's like, it's fun,
We had a suggestion that you take a barrel on tour with you from Mark Hornback. Not a terrible idea. Could be cool. They would see all kinds of climates and stuff. Of course, it has to be in a bonded warehouse or something the whole time, I suppose.
That makes to get into that.
You bond the bus. Yeah, I'd say bond the bus.
And just leave it on the bus.
See, yes. See, because that's the thing we're battling right now. Is I have no understanding of the legal, the ramifications. Like I'm being educated every day, because I'll call up people all day long and be like, why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? Why I'm going to do this? I'm going to do that. I went so crazy lately that like someone was telling me that like a distributor was just someone, you know, who would come around and remind you that you needed this stuff. And I was like, well, you know what? If someone pays for my gas, I will go to every single bar in the state of Iowa and remind them that they need my stuff in, you know, Cedar Ridges and our stuff in the clown mask. I'll probably get the police called on me, but I'll be like, hey, I'm the clown. You need to buy this because I can't physically bring it to you or you to it, apparently. So yes, I'm always trying to, I mean, we preach safety, we preach the law, we're gonna be legal, but man, it is tough now that it's in rock and roll. Like it's like the beginning of my career, breaking, you know, getting Slipknot to be noticed. It's like I'm finding these same roadblocks with the whiskey. I just don't get it, but I'm educating and I abide by it and I understand. But I just wish I could have it and go here, you know, but you can't. And but I like your idea. Get the bus, have them come out, and it's all, you know, yes, this stuff has to happen. Just real quickly, we did a tasting something in Kentucky. And Murph came down and we did this live, you know, talk like we're doing now. And the first thing that happened was I was blown away at all the people that were there and how knowledgeable they were on whiskey. Because when I first walked out, I was like, okay, a lot of, you know, I'm just going to say it, a lot of my fans, Slipknot's fans are here and we're going to have to try and talk to them about whiskey. It was just the opposite. They were educating me from the moment they were asking questions, and that made it more fascinating. But by the end of it, we were pouring the reserve down people's mouths. So yes, we have to get the bus and we have to go out. We have to give the sermon.
For the experiment to work though, if you put a barrel on the bus, you got to leave it there so it can travel around. Then you have the Slipknot Tour de Monde, because there's actually a cognac producer that does it with barrels of cognac on boats. And there is a bourbon and rye producer who does it with barrels of bourbon and barrels of rye, where they put them on boats and then sail past the equator and back and call it like a world tour.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know how they do it. So somehow that boat is bonded because they take, and it's perfectly legal.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep, that's like the hardest part about all this is, I mean, you know, you get someone like Clown who has just these incredible ideas. I mean, he'll come up with something that we've never thought of. And it's like, wow, that could really be cool. We could do that. But these 17 things are illegal, and you know,
Right.
we have to, you know, and we have to tell them no every time. And you know, and that's the hardest part about all this. So, I mean, you know, it's like we together, you know, there's a legal side of it, and then there's a creative side of it, and you just have to keep meeting in the middle until you finally find some running room, and that's where you can come up with something cool. So we're slowly getting there. We're slowly making some ideas reality, but this is an industry that's very difficult to do that in.
Well, just one of our listeners, Mark, just came up with the marketing idea for. He said he said, move over Jefferson Ocean. I want Clown Bus. So you've got the marketing for number nine, the bus.
I'm telling you, I love it because, you know, that again, I'm kind of like running it to the ground. But again, someone like myself, I want nothing more to have the safety and responsibility behind what we're doing. That's first and foremost. So I think when you present that and you have nothing but great family and business with you, you can make those changes. And that's quite success too. And to be able to, I wouldn't say out loud that we were asking anybody to, like, you know, change their views, but when they say it's okay, that's exhilarating, that when something new can happen for the human race, let's just say, that is a little different, you know, it steps it up for all of us. So I'm always going to be looking for that. And believe me, when we get off this, I'm going right to my manager, so I have it, and I'm going to be like, bus, barrel, bonding, go. And that's what I have in my mind. I have like 70 things going on right now, but I will tell him, bus, barrel, bonded, go. So we'll have an answer to all that, and then we'll do a collab. you can come join us, and we'll do whatever, and we'll just put a couple barrels of a couple different things and just have a little family reunion all over the United States or wherever we go. So it'll be fun.
Good by us. We had you guys were good enough to come and spend some time with your fans in one of our stores at the last year, and it was fantastic. I know that those people were blown away and so happy just to get a chance to have even a couple of seconds to say hi. So
and that's the other thing, to touch on a little bit, and I like to share this. This is something I don't think most people really think about, but for me, you can imagine when we first came out, there was this rush of Slipknot, and we used to do in stores before the show and after the show, and we actually made for a time period, they made in stores illegal in Australia after shows, because the in-store that we did at a record store after a show created mayhem. I just remember police on horses going through crowds, kids
Crazy
to get into windows. And, we're talking like 3,000-4,000 kids just, getting in one area. But for me, when I get to have any sort of difference in an experience, so when I do this whiskey, of course, our culture, they're bringing in CDs and these sorts of things, but it's a different experience. So what's great is, like, I'm just so used to signing CDs, and and now it's a different product and people act differently, and it's really like eye-opening, and it's just different than signing a CD. It's different, and they feel it's different. And I like that because I've been doing this a long time, and I like to provide different things. I like to reunite with the community, but always offer something a little strange, a little different, a little fun, a little embracing. So it's always fun to do these signings and meet new people, especially, when we can get the juice in different countries. I remember, I know I talk a lot, and I'm sorry, guys, I just trailed.
cool.
This is all good stuff. We got some stuff, overseas for this last European tour, and I had them pull back 2 bottles when we did London, and then I realized that my bus driver didn't get one, and I gave it to him, and I said, let me tell you something. This bottle is from my home state, and it's here in London, and it has a London stamp on it. And there's only 600 so bottles in 2020. That's it, 600 bottles for life. And there's only 600 bottles that have this official stamp. I collect stamps. My great aunt taught me about stamps when I was a little kid, and it was all about the art and just, it was education. I learned presidents that way, all kinds of things, state birds, state fish, all kinds of things in stamps. That's what we did back in the day, right? So I was telling my bus driver, I'm like, I'm going to give this to you, even though I should hold this, put it in my safe and hold it for my kids, because there's only 600, under 700 bottles. And I don't know how many there were, but I think it was under 700 that have this legal European stamp on our juice, our 3-year reserve. It was mind blowing. So I gave it to him, and as he grabbed it, it was kind of like one of these things for a minute. And I was like, take it. And he's like, you sure you don't want it? And I was like, oh, damn. Like, I should have like a case of that for my kids when I'm gone, because that's what's so cool about all this stuff is like we all know, Murph's been teaching me, you could take one batch, put them in barrels that were bought at the same place, put them in the same day, put them in the same warehouse, let the same temperature outside affect it, drink from both, and they're completely different.
Yep.
What isn't amazing about that? So
yeah, 100%.
There's always something new to experience in whiskey. It's great.
Always.
And this was, and the number 9 whiskeys were a relatively new experience for me. We'd seen like blended mash bill whiskeys before, but not on like a larger scale. And I certainly not that I think the results were this good. So I don't know. Do you or Murph want to talk about how you guys, kind of landed on this blend? And did this take a lot of trial and error? How'd you land here?
Go ahead, Murph.
Yeah, well, I can take this one because this was one of the most interesting and fun challenges in my career so far. And that was when Clown came and wanted to do this idea. From my perspective, there was an uphill battle, right? Because Cedar Ridge bourbon, Cedar Ridge rye, two products that we've made for a while now. We have a certain style, a certain flavor profile, and it's typically a bit more on the approachable side, very sipping. Meanwhile, if we're going to put a product out there that represents the band Slipknot, it can't be super approachable. It needs to be a little bit more bold. It needs to wake up a little bit so that the whiskey tastes like the band sounds or like what they project. And so that was something that was going to be a little bit different. And that had a lot to do with why we were interested in blending bourbon with rye, because where you get the sweet and the caramels, it's going to balance it out with that spice, and it's going to make it a little bit more full, if you will. It's just going to kind of round it out and add some complexity to it. So that was why we wanted to go that route. Obviously, Clown was very, very involved with that process, and I'm sure he'll want to talk about that in a second here. But that's how we landed on the idea of blended straight whiskeys, was to make that round, full whiskey that is a bold representation of what Slipknot is.
Nice.
I mean, that's basically, it was a deep roller coaster of learning, the learning curve to get right in and have to represent my soul, the band's soul, and the responsibility of selling, this beautiful whiskey. So I had to take a lot of advice and I had to learn really quick, but it was so much fun because we focused on the blend and then we focused on the proof, and we just, it just all came together because it's really about the product, right? So I was able to come with my wife, and I was strictly just wanted back of the mouth tasting. I wanted to make quick commitments because I could get lost in the whole thing we were doing. I could have just nitpicked it, but we nailed it really quickly. And I think they had their eye on the prize of what to present, and we honed it in real quick, and we just ran with it. And like I said, I love it. I literally, I'd be drinking with you guys right now. It's just that I'm making an album and we got to go track here in a little bit. And, we all got to abide by a certain sort of rules during the day, even though I don't want it and the door's shut and I'm back here in a secret little world. But, you're only as good as your word. So I keep my word. Yeah, the process of doing it was just wonderful. We literally just were invited in to this beautiful family, and it was amazing. He's corking barrel, pop, we're in the barrel, and wife's shooting them, and I'm tasting them, and, I'm driving back, and, we got to talk about what we did the whole way back. And I'm really big in trying to learn what I taste and what's really going on, so I can, it's not that I want to be an expert, it's just I want to learn from like you gentlemen, and I want to be able to offer my 2 cents and not have it be BS. And we drank quite a bit of this stuff recently, not in the excess of every night, but over time. I've been writing for a long time, and we usually get busy, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night is when all the pistons are firing for art, for our kind of, and sometimes you need that thing that I love the most about it, and is that on the reserve as it goes in, seems to pass everything, and then it just comes right here and it just boosh and just explodes into the body. And that's my love for whiskey right there. Our small batch, again, every one of those are just slightly different from the batches, which makes it great. However, to me, it's very aggressive. It's very aggressive in my mouth. Like, it hits me, and sometimes I like that. That's the beginning of the race. That's the beginning. But most times I'm right there with that reserve. And that's what I try to hone in on when we were trying to collect this thought process. And when that reserve got down there about a foot and just opened me up, I felt like a dragster, or a drag car or whatever. And that's what I felt, not the aggression of the band, but I felt like that was the epiphany that, boosh, Slipknot, just like, full on. So yeah, that's a little bit of how it went, but I really took direction, I mean, obviously, there's no coming in and demanding or suggesting really. There's just learning and being and abiding by what a wonderful scientific experiments humans started such long ago. So I really
I'm with you on the reserve. The reserve is something else.
And it
Go ahead.
says, I was saying, it really says something too about the process, because as you can guess, you've seen some of our stores. So we deal with a lot of brands that have come forward that come through celebrity venues or represented by somebody. And there are a whole bunch of things that is somebody tossing their name on something to monetize. And then you're at the other end where every single second it's a piece of creative process, and those tend to be the best and the easiest. We could sell this whiskey if there was not, it doesn't matter that there's an association with Slipknot. We could sell this whiskey by putting on the shelf and say, you got to have this whiskey. That's a great compliment. That's a great compliment, because so many people just, I want to have this and I'm going to put my name on it, and whatever goes in the bottle goes in the bottle, and it sells because it's somebody famous rather than selling because it's an excellent whiskey.
Yeah.
And we felt that was one of the, thank you for that. I really appreciate that, because that's really where we come from. Like, I can't be involved in just putting the face. This face has been my life. This face has taken time away from my children. This face has taken time away from my family. I was on the road when my father passed away. I was on the road when my mom started passing away. My partner I start with the band with, he's the one that recognized the art in me. I wear this face loyally with respect and integrity, and I would just never slap it on anything that wasn't as real as I am, or as real as the 8 other members are, and what we've sacrificed, the birthdays, the anniversaries, the deaths, the funerals, the weddings, the children's teacher parent conference. It goes on and on for God Music. I made a choice to be a musician, so I really appreciate that. And the way we got that done too, just to speak on that, I have kind of like a business model now where I have so many good people that work with me. It's just a family at this point. I can call managers or this or that, but it's really just a family of a thought process. You're either in or out. You're either in on this thought process until death, or you're out. So what I can do is I can tell people in my family, what it is we're doing, and they won't even bring it to me until it's right on that point, because I don't have time for people to see dollar signs because of this face. This face is real. This face represents sacrifice. This face represents a culture, and it won't just be slapped on anything for $1, because I don't even do things for dollars. So I really appreciate those words, because we always say in Slipknot, we have nothing to prove to anyone but ourselves. But see, the trick is that if I make myself happy, then I know that the community of Slipknot will be happy, because they need people to trust. And I'm definitely someone they can trust. So if I make a hard call, they might not like it, but they'll usually go, because they know that we take time. So don't put out a whiskey if it tastes like crap. I would not want anything to do with that. And believe me, I took meetings and said no to lots of things just because of taste alone. It had nothing to do with anything else but the taste. And no thank you. And one thing I'm really proud is how clean this reserve is, and how clean the small batch is. And that's mainly why I'm able to drink and learn as much as I can with it, because I just have no effect from it. There's no tomorrow, as long as I'm taking care of the electrolytes and water and stuff, but like all in all, it's just a really clean, and I like that too. And I want to provide clean to people, health.
Yeah.
Even in whiskey, you gotta make clean stuff and provide clean stuff, and not lie to oneself about money, and just what we can and can't do. We can do anything we want.
And to kind of hammer the point home there, I mean, basically a summary of what both of you guys were talking about, though, is that obviously there were a number of reasons why we were interested in this project. I mean, it's Slipknot. They're a global brand, a band with a presence anywhere, and they could have worked with any distillery. So obviously, it was very exciting for them to just contact us about this opportunity in general. But the fact that Clown actually wants to be involved was what was so beautiful about this. Kind of like Brett was saying, when you're a famous person, it's very easy to just throw your name on a label, send it out there in the market, and kind of collect paychecks. And I think that's a very strong differentiator to this product, to this brand, is that Clown is actually very involved. Literally came up with the blend, which is 60% bourbon, 40% rye. I always say that Clown wrote the recipe, and when I'm blending it, I'm kind of cooking to taste. I'm following his recipe there. So the fact that he is so involved with it, and that he does come out to the distillery fairly frequently to check up on things and hit us with new ideas, that's so incredibly important and attractive to us as producers. So I just wanted to hammer that point home, and that's what makes it so fun.
Hey, can you speak to the major difference between the small batch and the reserve, Murphy? Just for anybody who maybe hasn't tried them yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously going to be very similar in grain bills. That Brett's holding up the number 9 small batch there, and we'll do the number 9 reserve next. Very similar in grain bills, 60% bourbon, 40% rye blend there. But the difference is really going to be an age variant, as well as how much effort goes into the selection of the barrels. For instance, with that reserve number 9, I get very, very picky in which barrels we're actually going to blend into that batch. So, the batch size in both of these, we'll do about 10 barrel batches that get into that final blend there. And when we're selecting reserve barrels, I'll go through about 25 different barrels to sample through them and determine which ones actually make it in that blend. And I don't want to knock on the small batch at all, because I certainly reject barrels for that process as well. But it's just not quite as labor intensive, I suppose. And then the Slipknot small batch is a minimum of 3-year barrels, and the Slipknot reserve is averaging about 5 years per barrel. So there is an age difference. And then lastly, there's going to be a proof variance. The small batch is 90 proof, and the reserve is 99, and that's something that Clown obviously came up with on his own, and we went with that. So I've found that reserve, due to the extended aging process as well as the higher proof, it is going to have quite a bit more depth to it. Both of them, they're going to, like I said, they're going to be bold in flavor, but that reserve has a lot more depth due to that higher proof and extended aging process.
Mouthfeel too. I mean, the reserve is just a big, it's a mouthful of whiskey. It's a big chewy whiskey.
Well,
it's
Clown
really
said
great.
it though. You know what? The proof isn't over. That's the other thing. The proof exists and it's a part of it, but it's not overwhelming.
It's not defined by the
sometimes,
proof like some of these barrel proof bourbons are now,
And you might not, you just know that there's some weight there and there's some texture, but you might not guess that it's as strong as 49.5% ABV. You might think it's not quite that alcohol level because it just works so well, but it has a presence. It's like a feel, right, rather than attacking.
I agree with that. It is definitely a feel, and I think people are surprised, what it really is when it's in. That they think one thing and feel another, I guess. But I agree with you. It's a total feeling. And I'm not knocking the small batch either. I go through as much of that as I do the reserve. But
Like my go-to.
It's definitely a mindset for me. It's a little earlier in the evening. It's pretty aggressive for me. And I like that aggressive, but I'm stuck on the reserve because the depth is like dropping out of a plane and into water and swimming down with the sharks. It's so depthy. It's really special. I can't thank anyone at Cedar Ridge enough. Just I have to say it, I'm very lucky and blessed to just have something I enjoy. I mean, just remarkable. It's like my band. I still enjoy Slipknot. We still love what we are and what we're doing, and we will do it until we don't. So anytime in this business that meets anything that can be as good as it is, it's a blessing, because there's a lot of stuff that I could go over that isn't pleasant and really makes what I do, work, and I don't want work, and making whiskey is not work for me right now. I mean, I want time to where, I can dig some, last time I was out at Cedar Ridge, last summer, I got to go out there for a minute, and they were harvesting their grapes and they just had them fermenting out back. And I was like, that's my gig. That's what I like, rotten fruit and like, just give me that. I'll come here and I'll be that guy that hauls this and that. I love the whole process. I don't care. I'm not proud. It's just, you go back there and you smell that still, and the potential, and then, it just smells so great. And then when you go into the barrels and they're just all hovering over you, stacked so high in the ground, all that potential and all that love, it's really an eye-opening, fun process that I really couldn't have believed that I could get into, so I'm lucky.
For sure. What are you drinking when you're not drinking these whiskeys now?
Well, I'm glad that you said that, because I'm gonna do something very small. It's not gonna be like the whiskey, but so when I've been doing these signings, fans will bring their kids, and it's okay, it's during the day, but not to bash on anything, because I'm not, but parents have a certain responsibility. So I think to myself, how can I make this experience as much as I can for the adults, but then they've taken off work, they don't have a babysitter, they're going to bring their kids, it's during the day, no one's drinking, everything's fine. How do I make these kids have a fun time besides, a t-shirt or something? So I love root beer for about the same reason why I like whiskey. It would take too long to explain, but root beer started with my dad. And to make a long story short, my dad, we would drive from Des Moines, Iowa to where he was born, a city called Owine, northeastern Iowa. And when we would pull into town, my dad would always stop at an A&W root beer stand, old school, with everyone was on skates. They put the tray on the window. Anyway, my dad would tell me that he had to have a root beer before he'd go talk to his folks and all the people. And I picked up on that as a kid, that he needed a moment, and he chose root beer to be that moment. And then he told me that I could only drink half the root beer, because by the time we got to the half point mark, the glass was no longer frozen, and that we were to leave the warm root beer, that we'd get the big glasses so we could enjoy a large amount and leave the rest. He was really snobby on it, but I love that my dad just said, hey, I need a moment to get my shit together before I see my mom.
Yeah.
And it's root beer. And that's a time that I spent with my dad. And to take it deep, he allowed me to be in that time. So it's very, he needed to get his head together for his mom and his sisters or whoever, but yet I could be there busting his balls. I could be there, but I was part of that. So I drink a lot of root beer, and I'm trying to get off of all the other soda and but I still drink root beer, and I drink all root beer. I love all root beer. If I can get a new brand, I love it. I have it sent to me. So I'm going to make some root beer, but I'm not making it like, it's just small amounts, but it's mainly, I would love to be able to offer a root beer to the kids that are coming with their parents and say, hey,
Yeah, that's really cool.
Here you go. And, they get their root beer, and so, you can think about what that all means. And so I drink like that. And to be honest, I like that sometimes I'll chase some whiskey sometimes with just a splash of root beer for those. I love sassafras, and everybody's scared of it. Everybody's so scared of it because, maybe there is a carcinogen. I don't know what we know so much now, but you can still get clean sassafras. and no one uses it, and everybody wants to sell root beer as vanilla, and it's not. It's got to be sassafras and molasses, and you can have some vanilla extract, but you can't sell me a root beer and have it be vanilla and not sassafras. So I love root beer, and I want to, Murph and we're gonna have this. I've promised that I would shut up and sell the whiskey and not come up with any more ideas. So
Hey,
at some point, I'm gonna have a whiskey, root beer, have some fun, because I want to do it all, but I gotta slow down, and I gotta introduce the whole world to the small batch and the reserve, and I gotta make sure, like you said, they need to know it just as brilliant, that it tastes great. Take the label off, take it
Well,
off.
that goes back to what Brett said earlier. The
Mhm.
whiskey sells the whiskey. The whiskey is of a quality level that the whiskey sells itself. And it's not like these whiskeys are worth drinking. Whether a favorite band is involved or not. So
That's
it's the true test for all whiskey. It's great.
and that's a good sign.
I'm going to
That's
finish
actually
mine. Yeah, personally.
that's actually a good sign. That's actually a good sign on the root beer as well, because one of the comments I made, it is a huge compliment to what you guys have done and how you have really drawn people into your world over the last 25 years. How long have you been a band? The
Yeah.
fact that now when you go to a Slipknot appearance, pretty much anywhere, it's multi-generational. It's not just, it's multi-generational. And I noticed that when you were with us in Orland Park, the amount of people that were there very, very happily, that were just excited to show their kids, this band that meant so much to them. And I thought that was really cool. And the fact that you respect that enough by thinking about things like the root beer says a lot.
Yeah,
Oh,
it really does.
the kids are the future. I know we hear that, but I'm really big on reward, and if I preach anything, I just try to systematically remind, adults that kids need reward. They need to be rewarded with love and all these things. And so, yes, the parents do bring them and say, hey, this is what your dad and mom loves, and this is what we are, and we want to bring you into it. But it's my duty to make sure that they get a reward and an imprint that is correct. It could be, I'm not saying, I know the parents do a good job just because they have their kids with them, but, I don't necessarily want a child's memory to be, walking through a closet with a bunch of boxes up to the wall and alcohol everywhere. But that root beer, it feels safe and it feels good. And it's just a way to adults and kids to, be the same in the same moment, both get their drink, and, no one's left out, and it's a family affair, and it feels natural. And anyway, I love, and everyone knows this, I love our culture. And by this time, I'm 51. I was 26 when I started the band. We were 29 when it was signed. I spent my 30th birthday out there. I'm 51 right now. Of course, you got to imagine those 12-year-olds who were watching us. They got kids now. They're grown,
Yeah.
and I've seen it. I've seen them. I'm Grandpa Clown. I'm Uncle Clown. I can't believe it. I know so many kids, and they grow up and they're so beautiful. And more importantly, imagine all the kids in their social scene, their cultural scene, their gender scene, their ethics scene, all these things that they have the ladder to grow up with. That's what Slipknot tries to be there for. We try to be that ground, that level ground for you to find yourself. But can you imagine all the kids that start off one way? Maybe they're troubled, maybe they're having a hard time, but later in life, now they work for Wells Fargo and have a car and a family and still coming to Slipknot. And, we call our fans maggots. And the reason why we call them maggots is because maggots put up with shit, and then they grow wings and they fly off anywhere they want. And where they fly? They always fly back to Slipknot. Even if they're not into heavy music anymore, they always stop to say hello. And that's why we have whiskey and we'll have root beer and stuff, because maybe they don't want to listen to heavy music, but maybe they want to enjoy a drink and talk stories about the past or whatever. So this is a lifelong journey for me. I've given up long ago. other projects and other things. All things are Slipknot now. I mean, I've done it so long in my life. I just need to incorporate it. And with the loss in my life and with the gain in my life, it's Slipknot at this point. So anything I can do that's worth doing for us and our culture and just humanity, I'm gonna do.
That's beautiful. That really is.
Yeah.
I kind of on that note, I did want to ask, when fans can maybe expect to see Slipknot live again. I mean, it's been a tough year for live music fans, obviously.
Well, what I'll say is this. I want to say a couple things. I want to say that the world was one way before all this. And then we were all told to basically be very private, and that has taken a toll. So while being private, everyone learned maybe what we took for granted. So what's really important is, what are we going to do with it now? And why I say now is because, yes, very soon, sooner than you probably can imagine, we are going back out. As of this week, starting about a month ago, people started using the term 100%. And I have not heard that in a year. It's been 40%, 50%. No way in hell. It's been all these things. But as of a month ago and every day since, even today, it's been 100%. Exactly, I'm not going to say, because it's easy to find out. We have stuff up right now. I just want to go with the positive potential. And the positive potential is lots of humans have been vaccinated. And when humans are vaccinated, they can get together in groups, and then people can do studies what happens with those groups in those, in participating in an event. Of course, no one wants to get anybody sick. And I will take the stance right now to let everyone know we will not enter the realm of performance until we're absolutely sure that we can do our very best to make sure people do not get ill, because that's what's going on. So number one, we're going to take all God, I haven't worn this thing in a while. It's trying to kill me. It's really starting to get on my nerves right now. I'm having a little Slipknot moment. This thing is really trying to get in my brain right now. Anyway, it's just cutting me right here. It's just killing me. Anyway, welcome to Slipknot. I would say, well, we have dates up. You can find them. We have actual dates. And I would say that those dates, later summer, early fall, I would say that's what's happening. But you know what? It's not about jinxing it. It's about all of us doing our due diligence on how we make this happen. Yeah. It's what we do with the power of reuniting. Are we going to abuse it like before? Or are we going to make this happen? If you're sick, don't come to a show. If you have a temperature, these are just the things. But, it's going to be very interesting, and we've needed it, and we're ready. And I think it's sooner, we're starting to see things. I think the NBA and other people have done wonderful things with new solutions, like letting vaccinated people together in groups right next to each other. Mm-hmm. Because, you can study that, and the bottom line is it's all common sense. And when everybody uses common sense, we're all going to be back. So I'm hoping late summer, early fall, the train gets going. And when it goes, it's not going to stop, but it will be a new world. I mean, the kinds of things that I'm hearing, it's not going to be difficult to tour, but it's going to be new. And that's okay. That's okay. Change is good as long as you go with it. And I'm all for a healthy world. I'm all for a clean world. I'm all for no one dying anymore. So it's going to be very interesting, but I can say this, get ready, business as usual. The knot will be out. And I'll tell you, I've had visions of Corey Taylor being on stage and not being able to converse to the crowd because he's in full on tears, and because the kids are in tears and the culture's in tears. And that's why I say we all were in one state of mind. A state of mind happened. We were able to think, what are we going to do with the ability to have it back? What are we going to do? We're going to squander it, or are we going to make a difference? I believe we'll make a difference because that's what humans do. And it's time, and it's going to be a beautiful moment because everyone needs music, and music is what heals, along with spirits and community, culture, art, dance, prose, painting. All this stuff is what life is about, the beauty of the growing of the tree. And this tree is going to bloom. It'll be the new world, but I can't wait because there's going to be lots of tears and lots of appreciation and lots of love and reminding of what's really important. So
Nice.
very soon, very soon.
All right. I want to be respectful of your time. We really appreciate you coming on today, talking about these awesome whiskeys. I have one last question I want to ask, was kind of like, what's next for this number 9 brand now? Apparently some barrels are getting buried. Maybe that
Well, I've said this a couple times. I don't stop, and I've annoyed a lot of people because I just want to go further because I'm so excited. But what's next is, honestly, what's next is simply making sure that both batches, the reserve and the small batch, get to every. I want to make sure that I am doing what I need to do to make sure that if there's 100% of the world that will take this, it's my duty, along with Cedar Ridge and everybody in it, to make sure that 100% gets it. So until then, and we've only started, and with the pandemic and things, luckily we had a great run. We did a lot of great things. I mean, when it came out, boom, I started hitting the streets. We did a lot of wonderful things, met a lot of people, and we just got started. We were just learning about the process, what we could do better. So what's next is more of the same. Me getting into communities. It's not about how many people, it's about spreading the word. It's very easy for me to get into a vehicle with a couple associates and just roll up on some weird ass town and be like, yep, I'm here. Who doesn't listen to Slipknot here? Just set up shop and so maybe 15 people come. But you know what? Someone will give me the word. I'll skip to the next town. I'll hit 15 towns a day, get to see rural America or whatever, film it, talk whiskey, do things. So it's a little the same. I just want to get off my butt and go see more people that can't get to me because it's very on time off. I mean, I'm not saying this is easy because whatever's happening here right now is not easy. This is not easy, whatever's happening right now. But I love this. This is who I am. So if I could make someone's day, if I could roll through some small town in the middle of Iowa and one kid, okay, quick story. I went to a baseball event in Colorado. I drove from Des Moines, Iowa, past Denver where I was staying, into Golden, Colorado, where my nephew was doing a baseball tournament. And as I was going through the beautiful foothills and all this stuff, and I felt zero. I was like, oh my God, no one even knows. I had a bit of an ego. I drove into town and the first person I saw was a kid away from his house on a swing in the front of his yard wearing a Slipknot shirt. And my mind just blew because I was like, I've always wanted to make a difference on the small senses. Yes, it's nice to hit everybody, but if you can just come in and make a difference to one person, can you imagine the difference that one person makes to everybody else that I didn't get? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get the number 9 reserve and the small batch. We're going to make awareness to the entire world, and I'm going to work very hard to get that. And then when that's done, we're going to do other things. I don't know what yet. I'm lucky to have done what I've done. But yes, a few things we're going to do that are easy is we're going to start with burying several barrels into the ground at different depths. And we're going to start, a Cedar Ridge clown scientific experiment with ledgers and, temperatures and compasses and shot glasses. And, we're going to have some fun on minor experiments that don't conflict with what we're doing. And what we're doing is what we're doing with you gentlemen today too, and all the other people and everything. Just trying to make a difference in this aspect.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, obviously we're going to continue promoting the small batch reserve, like Clown said. I mean, that is the main focus because we truly have only scratched the surface. With that being said, we're we're going to keep the clown unchained. Don't worry. We're going to do some really cool stuff like he's saying. We do have a couple limited edition stuff, a couple ideas that we've got for down the road that we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves on right now, but you can stay tuned on those. And I think something that Clown and I really share is the passion for just getting scientific with it and experiment. Like he keeps talking about, we have had in-depth conversations about burying barrels or elevating barrels, just kind of getting out there and wacky with it. So I'm sure we'll do some fun single barrel experiments with those that can then be sold to retailers and stuff. So we'll get wacky with it, but in the meantime, we're gonna stay the course with the small batch in the reserve.
Nice. I'm about 7 miles from the Canadian border right now in a cabin in far northern Minnesota, outside the town of Ely. So I'm going to stop at a liquor store in town here tomorrow and see what they got. See if they're carrying it too. They don't have Binny's up here, unfortunately, but can't be everywhere, I suppose.
That's the goal, though, is to get it everywhere, to get everything everywhere. That's the goal.
All right. Well, Clown man, really appreciate your time tonight. These are awesome whiskeys, and I love seeing the passion behind it, and the thoughtfulness behind it, and all this was done with such purpose. And I think that's what people should be looking for in their whiskeys, really. So Murphy, thanks a lot. Your knowledge is phenomenal. Clown, again, thank you. Brett, I'll see you next week. Everybody else, thanks for joining us tonight. I think we have some virtual tastings next week. I'd have to check binnies.com/virtual tastings. Thanks, man. We'll see you, brother. Murphy, thank you.
Everybody be safe. We'll see you out there.
Be safe. Cheers,
Absolutely.
everyone.
Thank you guys. Thanks to Benny.
Good weekend.